Before dawn, the world is still submerged in darkness. Inside small settlements scattered across medieval Europe, there is no sound of machines, no artificial light, and no warmth waiting to greet the waking body. Homes built of stone, wood, and mud retain the cold of night as if refusing to let it go. The air inside is heavy, damp, and still. Smoke from dying fires lingers near the ceiling, while frost clings to wooden beams and thatched roofs. People wake not from rest, but from discomfort. The cold becomes unbearable enough to force movement. Every morning begins with the same instinct: find warmth, find food, survive. There is no time for hesitation. The body must act quickly or suffer longer. Fire is the center of existence. It is not a convenience, it is a lifeline. Without fire, there is no cooked food, no protection against freezing temperatures, and no light against the encroaching darkness. But fire is not guaranteed. It must be earned daily. It must be maintained with constant attention. One mistake, one damp bundle of wood, one sudden gust of wind, and everything is lost. So the first task of the day is always gathering fuel. People step outside into air so cold it feels sharp against the skin. The ground may be frozen solid or soaked with mud depending on the season. Wood must be searched for in forests or stored carefully from previous days. Nothing is wasted. Every branch, every twig, every fragment of bark becomes valuable. Even when fire is achieved, it is never strong. It flickers weakly, struggling against dampness and wind that seeps through cracks in the walls. Smoke fills the interior, burning eyes and lungs, but no one escapes it. The smoke is tolerated because it is the price of survival. Food preparation follows. Diet in the Dark Ages is simple, repetitive, and often insufficient. Bread forms the foundation of daily meals, supplemented by porridge made from grain when available. Vegetables appear seasonally, depending on harvest success. Meat is rare, often reserved for special occasions, hunting success, or the wealthier classes. For most people, it is an occasional luxury rather than a regular food source. Hunger is a constant presence. Not always sharp, but always near. It influences behavior, decisions, and movement. Food is rationed carefully. Portions are small and stretched across days. When supplies run low, people dilute meals with water or mix in wild herbs and edible plants gathered from surrounding fields and forests. The land itself is both a source of life and a constant risk. Agriculture is the backbone of survival, but it is fragile. Without modern tools or technology, farming depends entirely on physical labor and unpredictable weather. Plowing fields requires animals or human strength. Sowing seeds depends on timing and knowledge passed through generations. Harvesting is exhausting, urgent, and uncertain. A single storm can destroy months of work. A drought can wither entire fields. A harsh winter can erase stored reserves faster than expected. There is no insurance against nature, only preparation and hope. Seasons dictate the rhythm of life with absolute authority. Spring brings preparation and planting, where hope is placed into soil that may or may not return it. Summer demands long hours of labor under open skies. Autumn is the season of urgency, where everything must be gathered before cold arrives. Winter is the season of survival, where the world slows, isolates, and tests endurance. Winter is the harshest of all. It transforms the landscape into silence and obstruction. Roads disappear under snow. Rivers freeze solid. Communication between villages is cut off. Trade stops. Movement becomes dangerous or impossible. Entire communities become isolated for months at a time. Inside homes, survival becomes a shared burden. Families stay close together, not for comfort, but for warmth. Animals are often kept inside living spaces because their body heat contributes to survival. The air becomes thick with smoke, breath, and the presence of life compressed into small, enclosed spaces. Privacy disappears completely. Personal comfort is sacrificed entirely. The priority is simple: prevent death from cold. Night brings a different kind of danger. Without electricity or reliable lighting, darkness becomes absolute. Only small candles or weak firelight break the blackness. When these fade, rooms become completely dark. In that darkness, sound becomes more significant. The creaking of wood, the wind outside, the movement of animals, all become amplified in the mind. Fear is not always about enemies. Often, it is about uncertainty itself. Disease is another silent force that shapes survival. Medical knowledge is limited and often based on tradition, superstition, or religious interpretation. There are no antibiotics, no surgical knowledge is understood today, and no understanding of infection. A simple wound can become life-threatening. A fever can escalate without warning. Illness spreads quickly in close, poorly ventilated living conditions. Treatment varies. Herbal remedies are used where available. Rituals and prayers are common. Some treatments offer relief, but many fail. Recovery is uncertain, and death is frequent. Families live with loss as part of normal existence. It is not unexpected. It is expected, and yet it always leaves impact. Children grow within this reality without separation from it. There is no extended period of protected childhood. From early age, children participate in survival tasks, carrying water, gathering firewood, tending animals, assisting in farming. Learning is practical and immediate. Education, when it exists, is secondary to survival responsibilities. Life expectancy is low enough that urgency shapes every stage of life. Childhood is not a separate phase. It is part of the labour system that keeps households functioning. Social structure reinforces this survival-based existence. Most people belong to peasant communities tied to land controlled by local lords. In exchange for protection, they provide labour, crops, or goods. This system defines economic and social hierarchy. Movement between classes is rare. Poverty is inherited and persistent. Yet despite this rigidity, cooperation is essential. Villages survive through collective effort. Harvests are shared events. Labour is organised communally. Tools and knowledge circulate within communities. Without cooperation, survival would collapse entirely. Even in hardship, human connection persists. Seasonal festivals, religious gatherings, and communal events provide temporary relief. Music, storytelling, and shared food create moments where life feels less oppressive. These moments are not luxuries. They are psychological necessities that allow people to continue enduring. Religion gives structure to suffering. In a world without control over nature, belief becomes a way to interpret hardship. Churches and religious institutions provide both guidance and explanation. People pray for good harvests, protection from storms, and healing from illness. Faith does not remove suffering, but it provides meaning to it. Across centuries, despite hardship, humanity does not disappear. The Dark Ages were not a collapse of life, but a prolonged test of endurance. People adapted to extreme conditions with limited resources and persistent uncertainty. They built systems of survival through cooperation, resilience, and repetition. Every day lived in that era was a continuation of struggle. Not dramatic, not heroic in appearance, but constant. And in that constancy lies the reality of the Dark Ages. A world where survival was not an achievement of greatness, but the simple act of continuing to exist.